In this video I'm going to be growing ginger, but I'm not going to be growing supermarket ginger, contrary to many of the videos out there. I'm going to tell you why and how I plant it in this video. So let's get into it. So why am I not buying supermarket ginger? Well, that's ironic because in my previous video, one of my previous videos, I bought Jerusalem artichokes to grow, and I did buy them from a supermarket source because the garden centres, they were hard to come by in garden centres, and also they were really expensive that way. So I ended up buying my Jerusalem artichoke from the store, and it is already sprouting. So this is my Jerusalem artichoke from Sainsbury's, and it was £2.50 for two. Was it about, there was about four, I think, I'm not sure. But I won't buy my ginger from the supermarket to grow because I've already tried that 3 times and they don't grow. They just shrivel and nothing happens, and that is because they are sprayed with an inhibitor. Now you may think, well, how come those other people are growing theirs from the supermarket then? And that may be because they live in a different country and they're getting their ginger from a different source. I mean, if you're in parts of the US or parts of Australia, then your ginger probably grows in the same country as you, and so it's not even imported. And if it's imported, then you won't know if it's been sprayed or soaked in an inhibitor. So that prevents the ginger from growing, and that's certainly been my experience of trying to grow supermarket ginger. The eyes bulge a little bit, but nothing ever grows. Now, the difference with the Jerusalem artichoke is that that was a UK grown Jerusalem artichoke, so I was pretty certain that would be safe to grow from the supermarket, and I was right. With the ginger, I bought mine from the garden centre, which was B&Q here in the UK, and before I bought it I checked to make sure it had some bulging eyes, and these are the potential new growth. You can see them here. They're sort of almost green on the tip, and that is where the shoots will grow from. So like Jerusalem artichoke, ginger is also a rhizome. So you could see the similarities when I just dug that other one up. It's a lot like ginger, and it will grow and sprout a lot like ginger as well. So we already know that it can be treated in almost the same way. Now, I did think about cutting my Jerusalem artichoke into bits, but because I was able to get so many, I didn't bother in the end. With this bit of ginger, I am in fact going to split it because it's got sort of about 4 eyes that look like they have good potential growth in them, and that's 2 on each piece. So I'm just going to slice it down the middle, and then each chunk of this ginger will grow me a big bunch of ginger. Now, the difference between the Jerusalem artichoke and the ginger is that the ginger is a much warmer climate plant. So yesterday, in fact this weekend just gone here in the UK, in the southeast anyway, would have been perfect for starting the ginger in the greenhouse. But today the temperatures have dipped a bit, and they've dipped down to about 50, which is too cold. The ginger won't die at 50, but it will remain dormant. So that means if we want our ginger to grow now and have enough time to produce some good ginger, we're going to have to start them indoors on a heat mat, on a south-facing window, maybe above a radiator if you're still putting the heating on. If you're not putting the heating on, and I'm not, it's been too warm, I'm going to have to use a heat mat for this ginger. And probably what I'm going to do is use a heat mat on the window ledge and just put the ginger on there until the weather gets consistently warm. Because even if yesterday I had it outside when it was above 50, it's still dropping down far too cold in the evenings, and we do have another frost forecast. So you can put it out in the greenhouse in the day, but you're definitely going to still have to bring it in at night, and probably really you're only going to put your ginger outside from June onwards. I would say June, July, August, and then possibly it's going to have to start coming back in September. So ginger grows in warm, sort of tropical, subtropical climates very well. And of course, those climates are wet and humid. So we're going to have to recreate that warm, wet and humid, I should add. So we're going to have to recreate that here. One of the extra things you can do is use a black pot, because when the sun does shine, that black pot is going to absorb more heat. And this is just a starter pot. If the ginger does well, of course, we can transplant it into a larger pot when the weather gets warmer. So even though the plant likes it moist, it doesn't like to be sitting in a bog. So we're going to put these little pots, broken crocks, over the drainage hole to stop those drainage holes clagging up so that the water can drain well. I'm using a really rich compost which I've already wet, so it's nice and damp. Ideally it would be warmer, so I should have really prepared it yesterday so that it could have warmed up in that lovely sunshine we had over the weekend. But never mind, it's not going to be warm enough to start this ginger anyway. Today it's going to have to go on the heat mat and warm up. So now you almost fill it to the top, because a lot of rhizomes, not all, but a lot of rhizomes, like my Jerusalem artichoke, and I have another rhizome plant called Bistorta pink pokers, Persicaria, and that also grows on a rhizome, and that actually bursts up from the soil. Even though I plant it just below the soil, it somehow makes its way up. So these kind of need to be near the top of the soil rather than the bottom. So as you can see, I've 3/4 filled this pot with moist compost, rich compost, and then I'm only going to just cover it with soil, with compost. And then when that's done, really, that is honestly it. And as I say, the main thing now is to keep the temperature above 54 degrees. Anything below that, it will just remain a dormant plant. It won't get going. So if you can add supplementary light, if it's not on a south-facing window, you might need to add more light. But until we get the first shoots and the roots, light isn't so important right now as warmth. We need the warmth to signal to the plant that it is time to grow. Now, to help with the extra humidity, I'm going to put a dome on it, which is really just, as I always do, these recycled upturned bottles, and that will just help. It makes a propagator out of the pot, really. I mean, ginger is a tropical plant, so we really don't want it to dry out at any point during its growing phase. So here I am showing you the heat mat that I use, and I just got this off Amazon. But as I was rooting out my heat mat, which as you can see needs a good old wipe, the sun came out and the temperature in the greenhouse rocketed. So I'm just going to actually leave them out there while it's nice and sunny, and then bring them in later on and put them on the heat mat when I bring them indoors in the evening, because the evenings are still, I mean, it's only March, so the evenings are still far too cold. And then when I get these kind of shoots like these pictured here, I'm going to transplant them into much bigger pots, because those clumps of ginger, if the ginger is growing well, can get really big, like rugby ball sort of sized, or American football if you're in the US, sized sort of clump, if not even bigger actually. So, but until they start getting those shoots as pictured, I'm not going to be doing anything apart from keeping them warm and keeping them moist. And if you're wondering why you would grow ginger, like what uses, I use them in bhajis and pakora. I really like freshly grated ginger, and also in those noodles that the kids like, homemade, and stir fries, things like that. But also I really want to make some ginger ale cordial. And one of my favourite cakes is a really sticky ginger cake. And all these things taste 100% better, if not 200% better, with fresh ginger. And so that is why I will be growing mine, and I'll update you maybe with some recipes when it is grown later on in the year. If you like that video, don't forget to subscribe and like and share with anyone who you think might be interested, and I'll see you again in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.